All right, great. Well, I'm Dr. Patrick Beyer. I'm the project manager for the SWAP project here at the Mortgage Institute for Research in lovely Madison, Wisconsin. In the room right now, I have Allie Miller, who's our administrative assistant, and I have Daryl Dwelly, who's one of our lead programmers here. The SWAP is a DHS initiative, which is surprising because we're totally free and we really value privacy of our users. So being a DHS project, we have to ensure that everybody understands that though DHS is funding us, they're not pulling the strings behind the scenes, which is pretty nice for us. But we're a consortium of 4 organizations. First is the Mortgage Institute for Research. We are a nonprofit research institute here in Madison. We are affiliated with the University of Wisconsin, but because we are a private nonprofit, there's a lot of things we can do that the university can't. Also with us is the Indiana University. They are a cybersecurity team. They do manage the security of the SWAP. They do some external penetration testing. They also provide a 24/7 help desk for us, which is really very nice. University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign is our another member. Hello.
Hi.
Okay.
We're still here.
Okay, and they're University of Illinois. They do our identity access management. They're also doing some work with us on modifying the SWAP so you could build a SWAP of your own in your own infrastructure. So they're doing some work on that for us, which we're excited about that. And then the University of Wisconsin-Madison, their computer science department, they are basically the chief scientist is over there, and also the team that does the tool integration into the SWAP, and also they're kind of the brain trust of the continuous assurance process for us. Our team is about 30 personnel total. I have about 17 here at Morgan, and then the others are spread throughout the other 3 universities. So that being said, the SWAP, the Software Assurance Marketplace, we are a free resource for any developer anywhere in the world to come in and test their code against both open source and commercial tools. Right now we support Java, C, C++, Python. We will be, today we're putting in support for Android, which is exciting for us. In the future, we're looking at some of the other languages, PHP, a couple others, Daryl. PHP, JavaScript.
We have a couple other high-level ones like that on the radar, depending on what we could ask.
Right. And something we're really excited about, which wasn't part of our charter, was right now we're working on agreements with 4 commercial tool vendors to bring their tools into the SWAP. And the agreement we have with them is that any open source developer that is developing open source software can use those commercial tools for free. It also applies to educators. So any educators out there that is at an educational institution that is using that would use the tools for research or for in their classroom are also welcome to use these commercial tools for free. If you're a commercial or government vendor, you are welcome to use the tools in the SWAP, but first you have to get permission from the specific commercial vendor. So the ones we have on board right now, we have Parasoft. We have both their C test and their J test tools that are in the SWAP actively being used. Our next commercial vendor we're bringing in will be Grammatech with their Code Sonar project. After that, we will be integrating with Veracode. And Veracode is going to be interesting because you're still going to get all the support from Veracode on the analysis of your code. The way Veracode works is that you basically submit your code up into Veracode. They run the analysis there on their servers. And then they also have a help desk that will look at your results and assist you in the interpretation of the results. And you will still have that capability when they're part of the SWAP. So that's very exciting for us. And the 4th tool that we're actively talking about is a product out of Australia called Goanna by Red Lizard. They are a C, C++ tool that will be, once again, free to use for open source developers and for educators. So that's probably the SWAMP in a nutshell. I guess another thing that we have that we generally don't talk about is the intent of the SWAMP is really to improve coding standards right now, not coding standards, but how code is written, how code is used in the software development lifecycle. Because as all of you know, of course, when we write code now, we grab a bunch of open source stuff because there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. So we grab stuff, we put it in our code, and we use it. Well, what the DHS, the Science Technology Division, what they're concerned about is the pervasiveness of open source code that has not been adequately tested. I mean, you have multiple, of course you guys know this being part of OWASP, you have multiple people, you know, with their fingers in the code, modifying it and changing it and making it better. Well, nobody is really testing this code. And of course, for the cybersecurity aspect of it is that DHS wants everyone to test their code, test this open source code before you deploy it somewhere. So they're trying to make our cyber infrastructure more secure by offering the SWAMP as a free resource for anyone to use. So inside the SWAMP, we also have a number of the National Institute for Standards packages with known vulnerabilities. So if you're a tool developer, we actually are looking for tool developers that want to come into the SWAMP and test their tools inside the SWAMP in our high-performance environment. And to do that, we have, like I said, these the NIST Julia test suite. There's another test suite. It's on the tip of my tongue which one it is. But they are out there for tool developers to use. And part of our value proposition here for the SWAMP for developers is that we're a one-stop shop. You come to the SWAMP, you can upload your code in a safe, secure manner, have it inside a project and no one else can see your code unless you invite them, run it against multiple tools in our secure infrastructure, and then get that output and be able to view the results from all the tools in a single standard format. What we're using right now are the viewer that we have is the CodeDX product from Secure Decisions. What's nice about CodeDX is that you will be able to, for a piece of software, if you run it against multiple tools, you'll be able to integrate all those tool assessment results into one report. Meaning you can go online, open up CodeDX, and see by line of code what each tool said about your code. So really, we're really making it easy for the developers out there. So you don't have to download multiple tools. You don't have to maintain them. You don't have to try to look at the disparate formats. You know, each tool reports in a different way. So what we're doing is we're putting them in a standard format so you can look and find these vulnerabilities and weaknesses and see what each tool says about it. So that's pretty much our value proposition, keeping it free, keeping it easy, keeping it secure. Okay, so anybody have any questions on all that great stuff I just said?
Yeah, I do. Hi, this is Jim Manico, one of the board members of the foundation. Can you hear me okay?
Well, hi, Jim. How are you?
Great. How are you doing today, sir?
We're doing very well.
Love it. So my question is, you know, there's a very, very big difference between free and open source. And many members of our community are hesitant to use other people's infrastructure, especially for assessment. Some are. What are your plans? What's your progress on open sourcing? You know, the highest virtue of open. What's your plans on open sourcing the SWAMP?
We are just completing our process here for cleaning the SWAMP up. When we first started, we were really trying to crank this thing out and get it going. So honestly, we had some bad coding practices. We had some passwords and you know, user IDs embedded in the code. We're just finishing up cleaning those out, and we have the SWAMP out for open source in January.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
Nothing yet.
Excellent. Oh.
John's question?
Hi, this is John Rogers. I'm the president of the Omaha OWASP Chapter. And I wanted to kind of expand on that a little bit with, if we were to be able to open source a swamp environment and install that in our world, I remember there was a discussion that there would be certain default tools that would be coming with that open source, but things like a Veracode or some of those commercials would also have to have a commercial agreement. Is that correct?
That is correct. The way we, in January, when we're talking about open source swamp, it's just going to be the raw code of the swamp. It won't, at that point, be able for you to port it into your system and run it. As I said before, we have University of Illinois is working on that process right now. So we can put a product out there, because then it'll be productized. We could put a product out there that will now have good documentation. We will get rid of some of the specific peculiarities that we have based on our infrastructure and try to make it more generalized that you could bring it in. What we would do, though, is you would get all of the open source tools at a certain revision, would be part of the open source swamp. You would also still have the hooks to be able to run the commercial tools, but before you could do that, you would of course have to work on an agreement with the commercial tool developers. But we're hoping that it's going to be a very easy process for you to add Parasoft. It could just be that we distribute a different version of the swamp that has those hooks all connected and Parasoft tools already installed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Hi, this is Tom Brennan from OWASP Foundation Worldwide Board as well. Question for the funding and the initiative that was started. Can you give a little history or background as to how the organization stood up SWAMP and sort of what the funding looks like over the next couple of years as to how that's structured?
Well, at this point, we're fully funded by DHS, the S&T Directorate, through 30 September of 2017. At that point, we are going to have to, well, prior to that, we're committed here at Mortgage to keeping the swamp running as it is now. So to that end, we're going to have to start looking at other funding opportunities. The intent is to keep the swamp free and to keep it open. We're not anticipating right now looking at any sort of commercial model at this point. We're hoping that we will have other organizations out there that are interested in keeping us open source, hoping perhaps our commercial vendors will be able to kick some in. I know Mortgage is committed to partially funding the swamp, probably most likely just the infrastructure end of keeping that up and running and maintained. But we still going to have a personnel element, and then also any kind of outreach that we would be wanting to do. So it's up in the air right now. Our plans are past at 1 October 2017 that we'll still be here, and we'll have an alternate method of funding that will keep us, like I said, free and open and usable.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions about the general swamp?
Can you tell us, this is John Rogers again, can you tell us a little bit about, and I know it's probably up on the swamp site, but tell us a little bit more about the hardware environment that the swamp runs on?
The hardware environment that we run on, Gerald, do you know more specifics on that than I do?
Yeah, well, I'm going to take a swag at what I think your question is. So we're running right now about 700 cores, and I just lost a number of terabytes of memory, but we're basically equipped to handle and manage any events that would require up to 700 cores. So we're scaled up to that point right now. Everything's hosted, of course, on 1U or 2U servers. Everything's physically secured in the data center.
Our back-end environment, we're running on Red Hat release 6.6, correct?
Yes.
We're using a lot of, is it Alien Vault? We're using Alien Vault for a lot of our secure logging. I'm not the hardware guy. It runs, and I trust them to run it. But the back-end solution that we're doing is we actually, when you build an assessment, we will take it, we basically build it in a triplet. We build it based on a package of software, then we build it based on a selected tool, and then we build it based on a operating system or a platform that you want to run it on. We then take that triplet, we package it, build it into a VM that then runs in our back-end secure environment. And once that back-end environment, once that assessment runs, that VM goes away. So any data that's collected, anything that's, any weird IP connections or anything that are done, all go away. And then all that comes out is the assessment results, which are then put into our SCARF format, and then you can look at it through one of our viewers.
Okay, that helps a lot. Just kind of give a big picture. Is the hardware environment, is those cores and all of that processing, is that all dedicated to swamp processing, or is it shared elsewhere?
That is all swamp dedicated.
Okay, thanks.
So is there any other projects coming out of like US CERT that might be intersecting with swamp in the near term?
In the DHS world, there's a lot of sort of swamp-esque projects out there, but they generally are dealing with single tools, like there's the car wash at DHS, which basically is a interactive development environment inside the DHS infrastructure where they basically allow you to develop Android applications, build them and test them inside the car wash environment, and then deploy them. So it's sort of swamp parallel, but not quite. As we've been looking out there, we seem to be the only non-commercial entity that's providing multiple tools and a secure assessment environment. I know we're talking with, our integration talks have generally been with linking with other open source repositories, other repositories, so that they can come in and do assurance testing on the code in those, but nothing really is in, really something that's parallel to the swamp. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Would you say that there's any existing wins that Swamp can demonstrate in the open source community that it was helpful in trying to identify and proactively make a mark at this point?
That's hard for us because we try to really keep out of our users' business, I guess, let me put it that way. Nobody has come back. I mean, we've had some people come back and say, we love the swamp, we love the tools, we love the feedback we get from it, but we really are not tracking, how many flaws were found per code package or anything like that at this point. We are working on building, collecting those kinds of metrics and generating reports, so now we can start pointing at specific flaws found, what code base it was in, and doing that sort of thing. But our big run-up here in the past year and a half was just getting this darn thing working. We went live in February, and I think we're to the point now where we can start worrying, kind of telling the story of what's been found and what's been mitigated. But we're not at that point yet.
Great, thank you.
Yep, I wish we had that. Yeah. But I mean, I can give you some generic statistics at this point. I mean, we have over 400 users in our user base. We're running about 1,200 assessments a week. I think overall we've run over 50,000 assessments total from last February up to this point. We're successfully integrated with Bowie State and incorporating it to their curriculum. And we're on our second semester doing that, so we're very excited that they're very pleased with how we're working. We've had some anecdotal talks with some vendors. Excelis, which did our red team penetration testing, has come back and opened an account and has been using us to do some back-end testing of software that they're analyzing. So, and we got some very positive feedback from them on that they're very pleased and they really like the tool. So we're getting ready to start telling the story on specifics of what we've done, but we're just not at that point yet. Okay, anything else?
This is John Rogers again. I do have another one, and I just
want
to see if you've thought about this question or if you've heard this question, because as I've been doing a little evangelism of swamp with some of the Omaha folks, university, and even with some businesses, everybody's been interested in it, but I've had a number of folks at software vendors, software development organizations that immediately just, well, they see a lot of value in the swamp. They immediately dismiss it because they don't want to lose control of their source code and have it being put up outside of their world.
Right. Well, we looked at that probably about 8 months ago. There was a concern I brought up with the PIs at the different institutions. And what we came up with is we have an agreement from the United States government that any software that is loaded into the swamp, the U.S. government, as much as they can, does not have the rights to that software. They have the rights to the swamp-based software, but not to any software uploaded into the swamp. We're committed here at Mortgage to protect that data as much as we can legally. I mean, they're going to have to come in with the black helicopters and the jackbooted thugs to get the data from us. We have a very robust privacy policy out there, and also I believe we have a white paper out there on our site which talks about our commitment to protecting your software from the government or from any other user. As you come in and when you build a project and load your software into it, outside of yourself and whoever you invite to that project, I think I only have 2 people on my team that could actually get at your software. And we have internal controls inside the swamp that for one of our developers to use that or to go out and get the software and to, to do any kind of troubleshooting, they have to have permission from myself, my boss, or one of the other principal investigators on the team. And I watch that very closely to ensure that we're not violating that policy. And honestly, if somebody violates the policy on the team, they will be fired. I mean, that's the honest truth. Is I am very adamant about protecting other people's code. Of course, if the government wants it, we'll fight them as much as we can, and we may win eventually. But we've done, I think, as much as we can to ensure that there are safeguards on the code. And I believe a lot of those documents are in our policies guide here with the acceptable use, the privacy policy, and the big one is the swamp confidentiality and privacy for user data policy out there. I would point to anybody at that, and we feel that is a very robust, very actionable document that will help us, lead us on how we're going to protect everybody else's code and data as much as we can.
Okay, fantastic. To know about those links and the commitment there, because then I can help if I get those type of questions as I talk about swamp, refer them to that. So thank you.
Certainly, no problem. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Daryl's got comments here.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on a little piece about that because I spoke to some of the engineers where I came from previously, and they expressed the same concerns. But one data point for you guys that builds on what Pat just gave you is that the only resources here, there are a couple of resources and infrastructure that may actually have physical access to the data, but we have the separation of duties as such that they have no idea what that data even is, because all the data is basically stored with 12 or 15 digit numeric user IDs. So there's no connection between what your data is and where it is once we store it somewhere. So they need to come and talk to us to even identify what that entity is on the hard drive before they can actually identify and pull it. So we have a separation of duties here to protect your privacy as well. That really is something I haven't seen prior to here. It's pretty robust.
And another thing we've implemented is we actually do monthly security tests from our security team in Indiana. They actually do daily monitoring of our infrastructure, looking for anybody trying to break in to try to get inside the infrastructure to get at our data. And we actually we've passed every test so far, and they've done some really brutal stuff to try to get in. But we have automated controls in there. We also have, like I said, 24/7 monitoring of the IP addresses and the activity going on inside the swamp. And like I said, if we see something really weird, we will shut it down. And then contact the user the next day and say, hey, we saw this issue. We were concerned it was a security problem. What was going on? And you know, we don't like to be just draconian, shut it down, never say anything. We really want to communicate to the community and you know, let them have a feeling that you know, we're guarding their data here, and that if there is somebody out there doing something that we don't like, we will shut them down and lock them out of the swamp. So we're not just passively sitting here. We have a very active security program.
This is Zach from Omaha. Do you have a retention policy for the data that's generated by default, or does everything persist for those users in perpetuity?
Everything persists as long as you leave it in there. So if you're a user and you load a piece of code inside a project, it'll sit there until you delete it. If you delete your user ID, all of that data will go away. So we leave it up to the users to police their own data and code out there. But once you delete it, it is gone. We don't have it in any backups. We don't have it anywhere else. It will be totally wiped and gone.
Okay, thank you.
This is Michael Bourne from OWASP Omaha. Just a quick question. What kind of offensive type assessments do you do on the environment, and who does them for you?
I'm sorry, ask that again. I couldn't quite hear you. I'm sorry. I'm a little deaf. Too much time in tanks in the Army.
He's also on the other side of the room. That was Michael Bourne from Omaha asked the question. What kind of offensive tools do you run?
Offensive assessment.
Offensive assessment.
Against the environment.
Against the environment. And who runs them?
So I'm primarily responsible for some of the testing of the application itself. And the number one tool that I use daily and live and die by is OWASP Zap for the web front end. For the middleware and the back end of the system and in the SAN and the network, all of that is infrastructure that's handled by the cybersecurity directorate team in Indiana, as well as our infrastructure here. They use some complementary tools to what I'm doing, but they use some other tools as well, and I would be speculating to say what those are. But they're doing standardized offensive testing on a regular basis. I'm sitting within the development group here in Mortgage, and I'm testing against the web application itself daily as it's being developed with the developers. So the short answer is we live and die by Zap in our group right now.
But all of our, we kind of brought up the phrase eat our own dog food when we first started developing the swamp. And so anything that's written in Java and C++, we run through the tools that are on the swamp right now to look for security vulnerabilities and weaknesses. And as we add more stuff, we, of course, run our code back through it again. We have a very active testing regime. When we are developing the swamp software and we are deploying it, generally we take a week before we deploy a new version of the swamp. We take a week to do active security testing, active just development testing of the swamp code. So we basically have a code freeze about a week out, and then my testing guys just go at it. And the testing guys are different from the coders. They're not, I don't have my coders doing testing. I have a separate third group that actually goes through and does all the testing, and that includes testing of the software itself and testing of the software and how it integrates with the back-end hardware.
Okay, my next follow-up question is, do you perform any social engineering or phishing assessments against your own employees?
We do. We do to some extent, but currently it's performed by some of the other entities that are associated with the swamp. So it's kind of some use case testing more than actual social testing at this point. We don't actively employ, nor does DHS or any other group actively send any resources or agents to do social engineering that we're aware of.
But a lot of what Indiana does, to me, is black box, which is kind of the way you should do it. So we don't know what they're trying to attack us with, so we can't preempt it. Now that could be another conversation we could have with another call we could have with the cybersecurity team to talk about the cybersecurity end of the swamp. But like I said, they really black box it quite a bit, so we don't know what they're going to attack us with and when.
This is John Rogers again, and I want to kind of open this question up to everybody on the call and see what the swamp team thinks about it. Does it make sense to have an annual vulnerability assessment performed on the public-facing interface for the swamp, just so that as you can post that public-facing assessment information as part of your policies and standards about, you know, the security and the commitment to security by the swamp?
That is a great comment. It's not something we've thought about. Now we do have an annual called a red team test on the swamp infrastructure. We actually have a team come out physically on site and try to, you know, do not just the software attacks, but to physically try to get in and, you know, walk in behind somebody who opened the door and get at the server room and try to get at one of our workstations and be able to, you know, get at the back-end infrastructure of the swamp. And plus they also do the, you know, standardized, well, not standardized, but they actually do the cyber attacks on us. And we do that once a year. Now, as to, I guess we'd have to look at the report. And I would not have a problem of putting a public report on that out, and I think that's a great idea, and we're going to have to add that to our toolbox to put it on the site. We just got to ensure that the cybersecurity team cleans it up so we're not making it easy for somebody to look at that and say, well, okay, they've tried all this, and now I'm going to try this. So,
Yeah.
I was also thinking that maybe there should be an independent nature to that testing. While I've always looked at when we deal in my business world where I'm working with vendors, they tell me, you know, pretty much everything you said on their commitment to security, the testing they do, and I go, yeah, but I really need, you know, an independent view too. Just because, so I always worry about the conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm. Well, the company that came in and did it last time is Excelis, which is a DHS contractor. We did it in February and March, and so after the beginning of the year here, we'll be planning on finding another contractor to come in. So we've got a little variability on it, and honestly, I wasn't real happy with the Excelis test. I thought they could have done more, but we're also going to try to get that funded by. They actually have the DHS use another one of their contractors, and let them do the contracting and tell them what should be done, and then kind of surprise us with it. Is what I'm hoping.
Okay, great. That answered what I was looking for.
Yep. Yeah, we try to, like I said, we have a very active cybersecurity team, and they're always thinking of weird ways to get into the swamp, and it's amazing what they find sometimes, and we end up fixing it right away. But they're very robust, and then also, like I said, having the third party come in is a great thing that we also do. So. Okay. Any other questions?
Continue.
Certainly. Well, let's take a look at the. I have two websites up. One is kind of our marketing portal, who the swamp is and what it is, and that is the continuousassurance.org. We have most of our documents out here for public consumption. We talk about products, we talk about solutions, but the meat of it is actually the accessing the swamp, which we'll just go to that. I think that's more exciting to everybody. So this, what I'm showing right now, is the main page for coming into the swamp. And once again, we try to make it, you know, this is why you want to use it. This is our capabilities. You just scroll down, static analysis, collaboration, analyze your results, features, tool supported in platforms. You know, this was more a little kind of a front-end marketing thing. What's interesting is what we've recently done in the past month or so was allow you to get into the swamp using your GitHub credentials. Because our cybersecurity team is pretty adamant on ensuring that you know, we're limiting access to the swamp to people with known credentials. Somebody coming from a .com from a company that we can, you know, kind of verify, or from a .edu. So they really limited the access to kind of the generic emails, so Gmail, Hotmail, and those sorts of emails. We kind of pushed back on that a little bit, in that we were more interested in getting more users in and not kind of denying them access. And they're one way to kind of make us feel good about it on this end, so they feel good about it, is actually having GitHub as an authenticating organization. So once GitHub says you're good to go, you can come sign into the swamp, and we're kind of happy with that on the swamp end. And I believe our cybersecurity identity access management guys are okay with that. So that's a new feature that we put in. But I'm not going to go through the whole sign-in process. You're all professionals, and you know how to sign into a website, and I obviously don't, though. Well, once you're in the swamp, I guess what I just really want to look at is you build everything inside a project, and inside that project, if I go to my test project here, it'll give you the details of your project. Basically, this is Pat Test, you know, short name, who owns it, creation date, and my description is just R, whatever you want it to be. You can look at each project can have multiple members. So I could invite Daryl to come into this project, and when Daryl comes into the project, he has full access to everything in it. He can run assessments, he can look at the results. You know, he's basically a co-worker inside that project. Now, there is a project owner, who is generally the administrator, that can shut the project down, can delete the software out of the project, and has overall control of the project. So basically, I come in, I have my project, I want to run assessments. Now, what we've done is we've really tried to make this user interface easy to use and intuitive. And we had 8 months of some meetings that were kind of knockdown dragouts, because everybody has a really strong opinion. And I think we've come up with a really good compromise for how the site should look and how it should run. And I think, like I said, we've had some very positive comments on how it's laid out, and people have said that we've obviously taken a lot of time to think about how we're doing things in here. But, so inside a project, every time I do an assessment, it'll keep a copy of the triad. In this case, you look under package, tool, platform. The package in this case, you know, I got Snappy C, I got Juliet C, you know, Clang Static Analyzer, and the Debian Linux. So those are assessments that I have to delete them. And it's really nice a lot of times to go back sometimes and rerun these, or if you have multiple packages you're working on inside that project, the assessment is there. So if I click on, let's say I click on Snappy C, and I do run assessments, it'll allow me to confirm the run request, and will send me an email notifying me when it's done. So as I set this assessment up, I'm going to cancel out of that. Let's say I want to add a new one. I selected my package, possibly version of the package, by the tools, and by the platforms. And we have it set up here so that if I pick, pick autopsy here, right? It will default to the latest version, but then we'll also go to whatever other version we have inside the swamp. And these are basically our standard packages. This is not a package I wrote, of course. This is a standard package with a known vulnerability, but I'm using it here for demonstration purposes. Now, when you bring a package in, you define what language it's written in. So we're able to now filter out the tools that are not applicable to that package. In this case, it's a Java package, so I've got check style, error prone, find bugs, Parasoft JTest, PMD. So I could run an assessment on that. So say I pick PMD, once again, select a version. We have 2 versions out there right now. Then of course I pick up a platform. At this time, we're pretty much just Linux, but we are looking in the next 6 months to move into the .NET environment, the Windows environment, and iOS. And then, of course, we have Android coming out, which is going to be out this, is that coming out today?
I think it's on deck for today.
Yeah, we're doing an upgrade here at this afternoon, and that should add the Android environment into the swamps when we start doing mobile code testing. So I just pick whatever platform I want, select a version, and then I just do a save. So I've added a new test assessment, which is my first one here. And now if I want to run it, I just click on it and hit Run Assessment. I also have the opportunity to schedule assessments. So if I wanted to take this assessment now, do a test once, it will just run it once right now. Now, if I want to add a new schedule, I can, of course, schedule this. Let's call it Monday. Monday, right? Add the request, and then it will allow me to specify daily, weekly, monthly, what day to run, what time to run it. So I could set this up to run that package with that tool on that platform every Monday at 6 o'clock in the evening, and the swamp would automatically build that triplet, run the assessment, and bring the assessment results back. So we think that's pretty exciting for us. We are working on future capability now to be able to do pulls from repositories. I think right now we have the capability to pull from open source Git repositories. Any private repositories, we're having some internal discussions on the security end of that, because to pull from a private repository, we're going to have some authentication data. And the question is, do we store that in the swamp, or where is it going to be stored? Where do we pull it from? How do we protect it? So it's not an easy thing, because we want to make sure that we're protecting everybody's privacy and making sure we're not violating our own policies. So let's see if I go back to my details here, back to my run assessments. And the ones I've run already, if I go to the NIST Juliet, actually I can go back here, correction, I can go to my assessment results, which lists all the results of all the assessments that I've run. We have some fairly robust filters here that we can, if you just, let's say I just want to see Snappy C, just find Snappy C in the list and put it on there, and we're good to go. But I guess the thing that I'm really excited about is our viewing of the results, which is really, I think, where a lot of our ROI to the user is that I've run 3 assessments on Snappy C using GCC, CPP check, and Clang, all on Debian Linux. Oh, where'd my mouse go? There it is. Okay, so now I can go to my viewers here. Native viewer will show you just basically the raw results out of the tools. But CodeDX is we feel is a very powerful viewer in that we will start up a CodeDX session with your specific database. Once again, segregating it from everybody else's data, and you're the only one that can have access to it. It takes a little bit to launch the viewer. Takes a little bit to launch a viewer. But really what it's doing is it's ensuring that we've got the correct assessment results inside the viewer so we can do our comparison. I guess, are there any questions on how we build assessments or run them inside the swamp? I know I'm kind of giving you a high-level overview. What I like people to do is just come get an account and play with it and see what it does for you and see how much you're going to like it.
Dr. Beyer, this is John Rogers again. Can you spend a little time talking about the platform decision and how that impacts the scan?
Well, right now the platform that we're using to host the system, John, or the platforms that we're supporting for users?
But when we were setting up to do our assessment, where the user requesting the scan was selecting a platform. So I wanted to understand a little bit more about that platform decision there, because you had a number of options.
Right. So I think the first answer to that is that we intend to support as many platforms as we can, including Microsoft and Apple. That said, right now, the initial first year, we supported the open source platforms, number one, for licensing reasons, because it was a lot easier to bring an open source platform in and support that, but also for supportability and ease of use for doing package, YUM or apt-get updates of those platforms as needed as we roll along for assessment. So you probably noticed when Pat was building the assessments right now that the platforms currently available are all Linux, right? All Linux variants and versions of those variants. That's today, but the intent in the near future is to support the Microsoft platforms, obviously for .NET and C# type of work on those platforms, as well as Mac OS X for work using anything on the Mac platforms as well.
So for us, the idea of having the multiple platforms out there, the different versions, is we ran into this, just a matter of fact, a couple weeks ago, where we upgraded our back-end software from RHEL 6.4 to 6.6, and they did some things in there that really weren't clear to us when we were planning on doing the update, and it honestly did open up a couple security holes inside the swamp when we did it in our development environment. So we're hoping that a developer who's developed some code out there will run it against a number of platforms to ensure that the different releases still don't introduce any new vulnerabilities or weaknesses into the code, just to make sure that it works and runs correctly. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do, offer them enough flexibility out there to run it on whatever operating system they feel they need.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if we look at our CodeGX viewer.
I just have one more question real quick.
Oh, go ahead.
So when you're performing the assessment, do you have logic built in that takes into account the efficiency improvements a compiler will add when compiling the code down to the assembly step? Do you have logic built in to detect any vulnerabilities that will be introduced in that process?
That's somewhat tool dependent. The short answer to that is yes. It depends on what tool you're using. One of the tools that we offer is GCC, obviously, as a compiler rather than a static analysis tool per se. But what's running for the flags of GCC is pretty extensive, so the artifacts from building that's available to you is itself pretty extensive. If you wanted to basically optimize building your code, and some of the things that you do to optimize is not necessarily associated with security static analysis, you can do that as well. The static analysis tools themselves are more concerned with producing output related to security vulnerabilities, obviously, rather than optimizing build. But you're not required to build it at this point. We offer the option for instance, for the students that are using from Bowie State, I believe. They're bringing in raw source code that sometimes doesn't even have a make file, right? So they're basically just doing a build step and then performing static analysis without actually linking and compiling anything. So it depends, you know, how far do you want to build and compile and link and compile everything? First of all, will dictate the quality of what you're getting out of, for instance, GCC for build optimization guidance.
And generally, we keep the tools as verbose as possible, so they're useful to everybody. We generally don't, at this point, with this version of the swap, we don't have a lot of capability for a user to come in and do specific options on each of the tools. We give you everything. It just makes it easier for us at this point. As we move forward in time here with the swap, we move into some dynamic analysis and then also being able to offer access to interactive virtual machines to users. I think that will change a little bit. But right now, just the way we've developed it, the way the system works is everything's verbose. You get every option you can get from each tool and use it in our viewer so then you can filter out what you think is obviously stuff that you really care about. So if you look on the screen, that is the output from CodeDX. And I know we're kind of running out of our hour here, so I'm not going to go into this really too much. But what it does is it allows you to look by line of code. It will tell you the weakness. It will actually give you a CWE value and what they consider the severity of it is. So you can go in now, look at your code, look at the specific weakness and see if it's actually really a weakness or not. And what's nice is that as you annotate these assessment results, they store in your database. So the next time you load this up again, all your comments will be there. So if you're working on a development team and one person has gone into these assessments and looked at some of the weaknesses and has done some mitigation or has said that their notice is a false positive, false negative, when they make those notes, the next user that comes in to open up these assessments and look at them inside CodeDX will see exactly the same comments that that previous user used. So we try to, like I said, keep those comments persistent for each of these analysis runs. So. Okay, that was a really fast, down and dirty overview. Are there any big questions here? I don't want to use up your whole hour here, but I think I already did.
No, that's all right. That's all right, Russ. This is really, really good. Really good, great to see. Do we have any in Omaha here? I think we're clean on questions here in Omaha right now. Anybody else on the call want to jump in? All right, I think we're okay then.
Yeah,
okay,
probably. Go ahead.
Probably the last comments I really want to make is that if you're a user of the swap and you see some capability, you see a tool that's not there, you see a package, you see a platform that you need to use the swap, you need to tell us. We are really open to getting the user input on what's useful inside the swap. If there's a language out there we're not supporting that you feel should be bumped up on the list, you need to let us know, because we do take that into account when we're trying to set our schedule for adding new capabilities. So we want it to be an open conversation with the world, with the OWASP community about what they want to see next in the swap, and we will try to address those and get those in as soon as we can.
Yeah, I think this is John Rogers. I think the presentation was great, very much appreciated. I think we're going to kind of go out to our membership, you know, ask them to start to create a test account, play with it, you know, submit feedback to us and to you. So again, thank you for the time today.
Well, no problem at all. That's what we're here for. We want people to use it. I think we have a great resource here. And it's just trying to get the world out and evangelize a little bit so people start using it.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much, Demo. And once this is all set up, if you wouldn't mind setting up either the video file or a link to the file, so we can post it out on the chapter's website. We'd love to be able to use this as a jumping point for many other OWASP chapters. A lot of questions were answered, I think, that a lot of people would be having. So I think we're going to post that and mark some key time codes to certain questions, and then kind of use that as a primary source.
Excellent. And we shall have that out. Allie Miller's on it. She will get you guys she will get you a copy of the recording. So, and we will share it also on our site. I think it was really, really good information, a lot of good questions. So, and,
all right,
guys, just by sheer coincidence, we're actually going to have a maintenance window this afternoon to do an upgrade on the production system. So from
tool card. By the time it's posted, we'll have to do things in the swap there.
Right. So if you try and use it this afternoon, it's down. We will be in a maintenance window starting at 2 p.m. Central Time.
All right.
Okay.
Great. Well, that does it on our end. Thank you so very much for your time today.
Great. Thank you. You guys have a great day and a great holiday.
You as well.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Okay. Bye-bye.